Hello and welcome back to Planet 40k. How you all doing? As always, our patrons vote on our videos and the latest Necron poll winner was NEMESOR ZAHNDREKH. Now if you do want to get involved in these polls, then check out our Patreon service. We do these polls for all the new codexes that have been released since the start of 9th edition. Also, I wanted to start giving personal shout outs to each new member that joins the service. So just to shout out the ones so far, for the bronze members we've got Eddie the Whale, V. Silas, Oscar Wayne, Brad Faber, Kate Martin and Josh Anderson. The silver guys are Corwin Johnson, Trip Chavez and Jonathan Amesbury. Then finally from our gold members area we've got Tom Gatenbeek and Aaron Powell. So a huge thank you to each one of those guys for keeping the lights on here at Planet 40k. So yeah, any new additions from now on, we'll have a new member shout out just for the extra thank you for supporting the channel. Right, so on to the review today. Mr. ZAHNDREKH from the Necron Codex. He's a named HQ character. He sets you back 7 power or 135 points. Only one of this model can be selected for your army, of course due to him being a named character. As for his keywords of note, he's got the Sautek keyword, he's a character, he's a noble, an infantry and an overlord. So being Sautek means he cannot be benefiting from any other dynasty code buffs, and that of course includes your custom dynasty codes as well. Being a noble will interact with command protocols, which we'll touch upon in a moment, and of course being infantry has its own benefits, for example being in light cover. Now being an overlord will interact with some of the stratagems, which we'll also go over later in the video. As for his stats, movement 6 inch, weapon skill 2+, ballistic skill 2+, strength 5, toughness 5, wound 6, attacks 4, leadership 10 and a 2+ save. So an extra wound and a better armor save over a standard overlord, which isn't too bad. Ability wise, he's got living metal, regaining a lost wound at the start of each command phase. He's then got command protocols which will interact with his noble keyword, as you require a noble on the battlefield in order to continue gaining benefits from the directives within the command protocols. Now a lot of people are still getting this part wrong. Now you must have a noble on the battlefield to activate the command protocols for the battle round. Furthermore, units can only receive benefits from protocols if they're within 6 inches of a character unit, which doesn't include Catan shards. He then has some of the overlord type abilities. So firstly, My Will Be Done, which is in your command phase. You select a friendly Sautek core unit within 9 inches of the model until the start of the next command phase. Each time that unit makes an attack, you're going to be +1 to their hit rolls. That's going to be for both shooting and melee. Note that this is a Sautek core unit only ability, so if you do play say a twin detachment with 2 different dynasties, you cannot buff the other detachment, only the Sautek detachment. The other overlord type of ability is Relentless March Aura. So while a friendly Sautek core unit is within 6 inches of the model, they get a +1 to their movement or advance rolls. So again, it's a Sautek core unit only ability, but this time it's an aura, so it works on multiple units at once as long as they're within range. For his more unique tricks, he's got counter tactics. So once per battle, when your opponent declares they're going to be using a stratagem, before any command points are actually spent, the model can engage its counter tactics, and if it does so, the opponent cannot use that stratagem for the entirety of the battle round. So it's very powerful being able to shut down your opponent's most valuable stratagem for the battle round. Okay, they do get to keep their command points, but if you save it for the right moment, then it can be quite crucial. Next is Transient Madness. Done in your command phase, you select a friendly Sautek core unit within 9 inches again. You roll 3d6, and if the total is less than the model's leadership characteristic, then you can select one of the results below to apply to that unit. If you do fail that roll, then you simply roll a d3 to determine the results rather than picking it. On the table you've got number 1, which is Avenge the Fallen. Until the start of the next command phase, you add 1 to the attacks characteristic of the models in the unit. Number 2, Quell the Rebellion. Until the start of the next command phase, you improve the ballistic skill of the models in that unit by 1. And number 3 is Solar Milled Charge. Until the start of the next command phase, you can re-roll charge rolls for the unit. So ideally you need to have the choice for this, as you must select the core unit before rolling for the leadership. So you don't want to be, say, giving a unit of 10 Lich Guard a better ballistic skill, so it's not going to have any impact whatsoever. Now all 3 will see good use if you select the right core unit. Now you've got Warriors, Immortals and Tomb Blades. They'll all want their better ballistic skill. Lich Guard would happily take the extra attack or the re-roll for the charge roll. There's not really a need to give anything to the death marks unless they've got a -1 to hit modifier placed upon them. Then of course adding their ballistic skill is okay, putting them back on a 2+. Now as 2 out of the 3 options are geared towards melee units, the Lich Guard is probably a safer selection if you do fail the 3d6 leadership roll. Also don't forget that it's got the My Will Be Done ability, so he can add 1 to the hit rolls with core units nearby anyway. He then caps off this ability section with his Phase Shifter, which is a 4+ Invuln save. Before we mention his weapon loadouts, we need to firstly go over the Warlord trait, as it does interact with his weapon. So it comes with a pre-chosen trait from the Codex, which is Eternal Madness. Each time the Warlord makes a melee attack, you can re-roll the wound rolls. Okay, so now we can go on to his weapon. So he comes with a Staff of Light and nothing more, nothing less. Very simple, just a Staff of Light. So for those of you who don't know, the Staff of Light is a multi-function weapon that works in both shooting and melee. The shoot inside of it is an 18-inch range, assault 3, strength 5, minus 2 AP and 1 damage. Now he is ballistic skill 2, so you should expect him to hit quite often. Strength 5 is wounding most infantry on 3s, and the minus 2 AP will take away a reliable save. Now it is only 1 damage a pop, so it works better on less elite factions, and maybe if you're lucky you'll peel off a couple of models that are single wounded. But against a Primaris Marine you're likely only going to cause a single wound, so not removing anything. His melee part of the weapon is strength user, making it strength 5, minus 2 AP and 1 damage. So exactly the same stats as the shooting variant, except this time he has 4 attacks instead of 3 shots. So you think you'd expect a tiny more from this, but not much more happens if I'm honest. Now he does get to re-roll the wound rolls with his Warlord trait, which is a little bit of a sucky trait if I'm honest, because he's not a beat stick unit. He's only strength 5 with 1 damage, so he's not going to be pulling up any trees here. But with the re-rolls he should be on average getting rid of 1 Primaris Marine in melee. So moving away from his weapon, we need to quickly cover the Dynasty code, which is the Celtic code. Now they've got Relentless Advance, which is a reroll to morale test, which has no effect on him whatsoever. They can also rapid fire up to 18 inches, which again doesn't have any effect on him whatsoever as he carries an assault weapon. So not great synergy there within his own dynasty. So moving on then, onto the stratagems, you could use Resurrection Protocols. So use this stratagem in any phase. When your Necron's Infantry Noble is destroyed, you can choose to roll a d6 at the end of the phase, and on a 4+, he'll basically stand up again with D3 mortal wounds remaining. Now it is only 1 CP, but you might not even get the 4+ roll off, so it doesn't always work, but it can be a game changer getting your Warlord back up on his feet. Another one is Revenge of the Doomstalker. So when your character is destroyed, you can select a friendly Canoptic Doomstalker model. You can shoot at the target that killed your Overlord, and he'll always have a +1 to his attacks hit roll against it as well. So obviously it doesn't really benefit the character here as he'll be dead, but if you did have a Doomstalker, then pop the stratagem for an extra bit of firepower. One final stratagem, which is a Celtic specific stratagem, is Methodical Destruction. Done in the shooting phase, after a Celtic unit from the army has finished making its attacks, select one enemy unit that was targeted by the attack made by that model. Then until the end of the phase, all attacks made against that targeted model will have a +1 to the hit rolls for your Celtic unit. So you could use him as the initial Celtic unit that hits the target, then the rest of your army hits that target on a +1 to hit roll. So effectively NEMESOR ZAHNDREKH is spraying the target and letting your big guns do the dirty work. Next on to some unit synergy. Now we've already mentioned the core units such as Warriors, Immortals, Deathmarks, Tombblades and Lichguard, and how they interact with the Mine Will Be Done ability. But there is another unit in the book that has synergy with the NEMESOR ZAHNDREKH, and the unit is Vargard Oberon. Now I don't want to get too deep into Vargard's data sheets. We'll probably be reviewing him at some point in the near future, but he does have 3 abilities that all relate to NEMESOR ZAHNDREKH. The first is Vargard's Duty, which is while ZAHNDREKH is within 3 inches of the Vargard, then he cannot be targeted by range attacks. Now this is not a Lookout Sir rule, so weapons that ignore the Lookout Sir rule such as snipers cannot ignore this rule. The second ability is Ghost Walk Mantle. At the start of the movement phase, you can remove Vargard Oberon from the battlefield, bring him back in the same phase anywhere within 3 inches of the NEMESOR. So this can even be done if Vargard Oberon is in combat. He pretty much is ZAHNDREKH's personal bodyguard. He can start the battle doing his own thing, chopping stuff down, then tactically when you need him you can move him in. The third ability that links is Ever Present Protector, which is simply where if you've got both NEMESOR ZAHNDREKH and Vargard Oberon in the same detachment, then the Vargard Oberon will not take up a battlefield slot. Now the guy costs 100 points and pretty much goes wherever ZAHNDREKH goes. Not too bad. So to conclude with the unit itself, he's got your typical Overlord abilities, so it doesn't impress me that much because all the other HQs that compete for this spot have them. His actual damage output is pretty poor. He's only got the Staff of Light. Again, when you look at the competition, Imhotep has the Gauntlet of Fire and the Staff of the Destroyer. Both of those are a lot better. Anrat the Traveller has the Tachyon Arrow and a War Scythe, a solid pairing. Trazan the Infinite has a Strength 7 melee weapon too with his Empathic Obliterator. Then of course the generic Overlord, which easily will outshine NEMESOR ZAHNDREKH as he's got a selection of a lot of war gear, not to mention the Resurrection Orb. The next blow to the datasheet is the fact that he's a Celtic only model, which cuts down his playability massively. I'm not actually sure I like what Games Workshop do with these HQs, as even if you are a player who plays Celtic, he barely gets selected anyway, and if you don't play Celtic then you can't be using him. So you'll be very lucky to see him on the battlefield wherever you play. Now he's not completely useless due to his Overlord abilities, and his 2 unique abilities as well can see some play with a heavy core list. The Transient Madness buff I kind of don't think is all that great, simply because you've got other ways of doing all 3 of the buffs. +1 to the attack sounds very Novak-like to me. For a Sautek unit to want to be fighting doesn't quite add up to me. But if you did want to use this, then Anrat the Traveller does that just fine. Adding 1 to the ballistic skill is virtually the same as my will be done for Shooty Dynasty, which he already has. And a standard Overlord could just have the Hand of the Pharaoh stratagem for 2 CP, which allows him to double up on that ability. The third ability is the reroll to charge rolls. Now Chronomancers do this, plus they give a 5+ inrun save on top. Also, any Warlord that can choose their own Warlord trait can simply select Implacable Conqueror for rerolls to charge rolls for core units. So what I'm getting at here is there's lots of better ways to do all the buffs you're trying to do here. Now I do like the synergy between the Nemesor and the Vargard, but this is very narrative for me. I don't think I'd ever pay a combined total of 235 points for both, and that's if I did play Sautek. I'd rather just take either an Overlord or Command Barge, or if I did really need a named character for whatever reason, you've got Emitek the Stormlord or Illumina Zares, which will work just fine. So this is why today I'm going to be giving NEMESOR ZAHNDREKH a Planet 40k rating of 2 out of 5. Now he's not totally useless, he's still got his buffs, which is predominantly why he's fielded. There's just much better options in this codex. That's my thoughts. Let me know yours below. What score would you give him? Also a quick poll to end the video. Who is your preferred named character? The options are NEMESOR ZAHNDREKH or Emitek the Stormlord. Only 2 options here guys. Drop a like on your way out. Thank you all for watching and I'll see you in the next one.